Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Deployment Dudes, where we are just guys being dudes talking all things deployment. I am your host, Scott Hutter. Joining with me, as always, my co-host, Phil Fannin. Phil, what's up?
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Happy New Year.
Good to be back.
Yeah. Special guest with us today. Do you want to do the honors?
Yes, it is a special guest. So we have Ben Andrus with us today. Ben, welcome to the show.
Guys. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, how you know us, and then what you're here and doing for Kinettix.
I want to interject before he
Gosh darn
shares
it.
his background.
Here we go.
Because he blew my mind right before this. Check out this blazer he has.
Let's look at this blazer.
It looks like an ordinary blazer, but
Yes. Show us the secret.
how?
Built-in pocket square.
Built-in pocket square.
Semi-formal to formal.
You know what?
Done.
I'm reminded back to our friend Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, where he said, "You got so focused on whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think of whether or not you should." That might be a good example of whether or not you should. Just because you got a built-in pocket square, is it really good?
Have you ever gone to an event and based on the vibes, you're like, all right, this calls for the pocket square?
I mean, you could certainly find yourself in that environment where you want to step it up a notch.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to limit my options. Like, why wouldn't you want to have just a pocket square readily available?
I don't want to limit my options.
More is better.
Is
More
it?
is always better.
I don't know. If I stuck 2,000 people in this room, that would be more, and I think that's rather unpleasant.
Yeah, but what's the purpose? Why? What are you trying to accomplish?
Okay, so you're saying more with purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you weren't.
I mean, I don't
weren't
wear this
clear on that.
jacket for just the fun of it.
I had no idea we were going to turn an entire podcast on his blazer, but let's do it.
Well, it blew my mind.
Hey, I'm game.
We can.
You got to be able to adapt to your environment, to the people, to the situation. So it just gives you another option.
And you're adapted.
I like it. 2 thumbs up from my perspective.
Truth is, I've probably had options and didn't even know it. Because, I'm just stupid.
It's not too late for you.
Oh, it is. This old dog knows no new tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So,
Well,
How about back on topic?
Yeah, speaking of old dog,
Yeah.
we go back quite a ways.
We do go back quite a ways. Tell us about that.
So I came from a similar background as you guys. Worked at a previous company. Are we allowed to disclose all that? Okay. So I came from previous company with you guys at Contingent. Started there in about 2012. Was immediately a project manager. Kicked off on some telecom company, mostly voice over IP type work.
Was that XO Communications?
Yeah,
back
XO was
then?
definitely one of my
got
first.
bought
clients.
by Verizon.
Verizon.
Yeah, Verizon. And they, after that acquisition, they're still my client until that kind of got changed through the acquisition.
Yeah.
But yeah,
USPS project, right?
I was part of that. Did many different types of rollouts. But yeah, voice over IP was definitely my go-to back then. That kind of changed as our company changed and we were acquired by Comcast. Then it became the Contingent, a Comcast business company, which changed the way that we operated and worked. And that's where I worked mostly with Scott at that time to try to run our small organization within a very large organization. It allowed us to become very refined. But it also streamlined kind of how we operated.
Right.
And so then we were able to pivot that after that acquisition to come here at Kinettix. And so I've been here about 5 years in total. Previously worked as the director of solutioning and also as a product owner for our Dispatch One ticketing system. And now I am working within the PMO back as a project manager through several initiatives, not just providing outcomes and project results for our clients, but also internally trying to manage and run some internal projects.
And before Contingent, you were in the military, correct?
I was in the Army, went right out of high school. Actually, when I got out of the Army, I went into college, and before I even graduated, I started at Contingent.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun Army jokes that you learned while you were in the Army that you can share that are clean for a
Definitely
young
none that are
audience?
clean.
No? Okay.
No, I mean
All right.
that doesn't really go with humor in the military.
Daggone, you're right.
Yeah. I just didn't want to gloss over that. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you've done a few different roles here at Kinettix and contingent Comcast, but you said most recently you're brought in as a project manager. You and I have been working very closely on a massive rollout, which is what I wanted to dive into today. And I think the whole premise of that project is, no matter how much you plan or set up a contract or the structure of a project, you got to be nimble and willing to pivot because a lot of times these projects never end up being executed the way you planned, right? So let's talk about how the project first was structured when you first became part of it.
Yeah. So the idea was that we would be able to manage our schedule a little bit more efficiently. We were training and building out delivery teams that would go from location to location so that we could have repeatable results at each of those and have lessons learned that carried over. But what we quickly learned is that there was a construction schedule that was kind of dictating the progression of the project. And so it required us to really change our approach. That we were not able to schedule these sites in the order in the way that we wanted to. We had to be much more adaptable to the client schedule. Really, it was like several layers deep. And I think that's really the crux here is that, we were working with multiple layers of service delivery to get to our part of the physical installation of the cabling and infrastructure. So to figure out how that cadence works, the different parties that were in play beyond our direct client, and understanding how their orchestration worked and the people that we could work with from that standpoint, to understand how they made their decisions, and then we could start mirroring our workflows and scheduling cadence to match what they were looking for. So it's been a work in progress. I mean, that's multiple layers of communication. When you start talking about, who's the client of who's able to pull kind of those strings, it becomes a lot of negotiation and building out use cases and having these tough conversations of this isn't working. These are the reasons why we believe it's not working, doing a root cause analysis and presenting that back and building a case to say, hey, here's a plan to get this back on track. We recognize that none of us are at fault here. It's just the nature of the way this project runs. But here's an idea of how we can get it back on track.
Yeah, the complexity around these things, I think, a lot of it gets missed because you're talking about all these different layers, and not everybody understands and knows what the field services is like. Nobody, other people that are in the mix don't necessarily know what the other businesses' requirements are and what throws them off kilter. And so you're exactly right. It's important for us to communicate and stay on top of, hey, this is what's not working for us, and here's why. How can we all collectively work together to find that middle ground that says, okay, we're probably all going to have to make some kinds of changes and shifts in what we do in order to find that middle ground. And that's hard to do, especially when you've got a giant organization. You've got giant organizations involved in this, first of all. Then you've got a giant rollout that is involved in this, and then you've got speed, right? So now you start layering all these different expectations and these different needs and these requirements, and well, you can't do this because of this, and then the domino effect starts to happen, and it all starts avalanching down and herding those cats like you're having to do is it's hard, it's difficult, and I think a lot it gets missed on a lot of people. I think they just have somewhat, not to be disrespectful, but a tunnel vision, and they see their world and they see that their stuff is just not getting done properly, and then they have so much disregard for the other things that have to take place, right? These are the reasons why it can't flow the way it's flowing today. Here's what has to change, and being able to do that in a clear and concise way and in a respectful way, not easy.
Yeah, I think being able to articulate that in a way that they can understand. It's not just saying that it's wrong, but here's how we can work together to make it better.
Yeah.
And it's recognition of the issues. This is causing us a problem. How do we get around it? How do we prevent it from continuing to cause us. A lot of that's building out the risk and issues log,
Yep.
managing that, and then having a strong communication cadence. I mean, that was one of the first things that I did, is that we built both external and internal communication cadence.
Yeah.
That way we can transfer information. This is an overnight project, so everything that we discuss and go over during the day has to be relayed to our overnight teams so that they're in the loop and they understand these changes and pivots that we're making in real time. So you gotta have that flow of communication internally, but then externally as well. Like I said, there's multiple layers. So we have to be in sync with our client, and then we have to help prepare them and communicate to their client the changes that we're proposing and expecting. So it's multiple layers of communication that have to just really flow in order to allow these changes to happen.
What have you been doing, or what have you done that's helped try to keep this on track or on the rails and all that communication you're talking about? I'm sure it was difficult in the beginning, but did you feel like you kind of got your arms wrapped around it? And if so, like, how did you do that? Why did you do that? Like, what would our audience want to hear and understand and know that maybe we didn't know in the beginning that you've gotten to now, where it feels like it's back on track?
Yeah, I think reporting is key for that. Both reporting, like I said, of the issues and risk, right? Just documenting those, continuing to bring those up on the calls, working towards resolutions for your issues while mitigating your risk. But it's beyond that. It's also reporting the key performance indicators for that project, right? In this project, materials deliveries was an issue that we had initially. So we needed to start recording that. We needed to report what was missing, when was it missing, how often does this happen, so that we could do those root cause analysis to figure out, this was actually a logistics issue with the team that compiles these materials to ship to site. And then when they were able to work with that team to find a better process to make sure that we got the right materials on site. And that's just one example. There's a timeline component, as you mentioned, to this, that there's a flowing cadence that we kind of initiate. We do our work before anybody else comes in to do their work. But the schedule is really driven by the actual installation of the point of sale system. And so that drove us towards trying to stay ahead of that schedule, but then there was concerns with that. So reporting on those delays, reporting on then measuring your increase as you make these change. Does that change have a profound impact on this project? Can you see it in the data that the change has improved things for the better? And then being able to present that not only to our client, but then they can take that to their client. It just builds a trust internally that, hey, we're focused on the key aspects of this project that are either causing us issues or that we need to accomplish to be successful, and then measuring against those when we make these changes so that we are more successful.
Yeah, I think one thing that really helped with the project that you implemented was defining what success looks like and really refining all of our reporting and all the deliverables for the project, because I think early in a project, when you incubate it and you have a pilot phase, you might have one or two really good field resources. They do a good job and they get the work done, right? You're like, okay, everything was done, but it's how do you scale that? Because you're going to bring new techs in, you're going to go into other markets. It's like when that incubation phase can make you feel comfortable, and those things might get neglected. So as we started to scale, we realized we need to build out the tribal knowledge beyond the field to more of our project management team, our project coordinations, our technical coordinators, which gives you the ability to not be as reliable on the field resources, but be able to macro manage at the operational level.
Yeah, you brought up deliverables, and that was actually a key component of this project. When we started off, I mean, this is a very robust installation where we're accomplishing many different things within this site, and so we want to have pictures of each of those. It's not just a simple rack installation where we can take a picture of a rack and say, yep, it's in the right place with the right devices and the right slots. This is spread out throughout the entire facility. So by the end of this, we would have anywhere between 50 to 70 pictures that we would need to validate. And so we started to create these internal processes to review the specific deliverables and to validate the results from site, and then be able to, in real time, make corrections or edits to that installation if they were necessary. If a bracket was placed too high, too low, we could provide that feedback to the technician while he's still on site. And then that reduces your return visits. It provides proof of successful installations. And so we had to refine that process. We had to define what those deliverables were required versus optional. We often refer to things as CYA internally. It's really good to have pictures of your cable run results. To be able to prove that at that time, those cable runs were viable and successful. But that might not necessarily be something our client wants to see or has to have on record, or even their client. So we keep that internally, and we review those internally. We make sure that all of our cable runs are meeting our parameters. They're terminated in BICSI standards, that we're validating the results on site. And then we had to scale that for this project. So once we defined those deliverables, then we developed internal processes to review them. We had dedicated technical coordinators that would review those pictures, and we actually piloted a video recording process where once the technician was completed, he would walk through a set path that we had determined prior, that he would walk through and take a video with his phone. And that way we could review that video to kind of get a full understanding of the entire site before he left, not just these individual images or piecemeal pictures that we got.
You touched on something earlier. You're talking about building trust. How's that going?
Yeah.
Was trust resistant in the beginning for your audience that you're communicating with? And did it take you some time to have to build that? And if so, like what do you think ultimately got you to the point, or assuming you have that trust from them now? Consistency and that kind of thing?
I would say when projects tend to go awry, fingers start to point. And so that even in the best of circumstances, you can find yourself in a situation where you're taking the brunt of an issue, or entire project issues that come up, and so we have to address those, right? We're again the fingers pointed at us. We have to be able to provide an answer in some way. And so a lot of that is building out that kind of pre-work, again, identifying those KPIs, starting to build that reporting ahead of time, and then being able to report that back. I think building that trust, it's about proving that you can provide results, but you can also play ball. There's many things that make a project successful that go outside of standard definitions. You got to be able to make adjustments in real time. You got to be able to address specific instances or issues in a very, I'm trying to think of like elastic way. Like you gotta be a little flexible to make things happen. So while it is good to resort to these defined processes, you also have to have that leeway to be able to take a couple of hits, to be able to go to your client and say, yeah, we understand your concern here. We'll go ahead and take care of that for you. That goes a long way to addressing their concerns, that we've got their back. That we're in this together, right? The ultimate goal is that we should align with the outcomes that our client is expecting, right? So that way we're both driving towards the same goal. It's not just about making money on this project. It's about delivering the results, so that when somebody comes and sees the results that we provided, that the next person can see that and be like, oh, that's the company that I want to work with, because I know what they're going to provide. I know the expectations that I can place on them and that they'll deliver. And it's not just about, again, the on-site installations and making sure that things are done in a professional and verified manner, but it's also the internal interactions between the companies and how we communicate and how we present schedules and issues and risk logs, and how we just really communicate with them back and forth that we're in this together. We're parts of a system that's trying to deliver this outcome, not these individual vendor and client relationships. Like we're really trying to drive that together, and understanding each other in that way takes time. It takes again, I keep bringing this up, but those key performance indicators. What is your client really looking for? Like what are they actually wanting out of this beyond just the outcomes of the installation. Maybe it's about how our technicians dress. If we're not providing a certain caliber of technician that they're expecting, then we can work towards addressing that, and we can work towards making those changes to the project so that it does provide that better outcome for the client, aligning with their expectations.
Yeah, I mean, you used the word earlier, elasticity. I really like that, talking about flexibility and, just to showcase Kinettix a bit. That, to me, is probably one of the largest, most unrecognized ingredients in what we bring to the table, is the flexibility that when these giant projects, even if they're not giant projects, if they're regular projects or whatever, those curveballs, they exist out there. And giant organizations that do what we do by no fault of their own oftentimes are not able to accommodate the flexibility. They're so rigid in their practices. One, because they're a target to get sued, right? Two, there's so many layers involved in the bureaucracies of, this thing, a project is incredibly fluid. You have to assume it's moving at a pace that has to stay on track with that pace. And then by the time you've gotten through the hierarchy of decision making in that giant organization, that problem is 3 problems ago, right? You're already on to 2 new ones, and 2 more dumpster fires that are going on over here that you have to address, and you still don't have the big one, addressed yet. And to me, that is the beauty of our business model, the size of our organization, the entrepreneurship mindset that we have here in empowering people like you, right? You don't have to go all the way to the top of the tree in order to make decisions that are sound and are, number 1, good for us, number 2, good for the client, and that all of those things are in alignment, right? That's incredibly difficult for the AEs to be able to convey in the very beginning of why you select and why you work with an organization like us. I know that probably just sounds like a lot of what they call it, word soup or whatever, but it's true. It's not easy to just make sure that people understand and know the problems are going to happen. You want an organization behind you that says when these problems happen, we're going to identify what they are, we're going to communicate what they are, we're going to tell you the solution, and then activate it immediately or almost immediately, a heck of a lot faster than these other slow-moving machines, right?
Yeah, I see that a lot, especially when you're talking about enterprise level organizations. We flow through all of that, right? We go all the way up to enterprise level projects and delivery results down to, small value added resellers that, when they sell something, they have a timeline to deliver that product, whether it's hardware or software on top of hardware or something like that we've got to be able to react to. So we kind of go all the way in scale.
Mm-hmm.
We can go very large enterprise all the way down to individual site. A couple of, like I said, voice over IP was my area. Is a product that we would install frequently for a client was a switch and 3 phones. And that was it. And so whenever they sold that to a client, they would submit the request to us. We would react on that, immediately. We had a timeline. It was like 2 business days, I think, to schedule the install for that. But we were able to put the processes and pieces in place to be able to react to them in the way that they needed.
Yeah.
I think that really starts all the way in the sales process. I mean, the way that Kinettix structures our products that we provide that flexibility.
Yeah.
Just starting off with our dispatch services, I mean, anybody can use that. Anybody can jump in and get a tech on site to do a quick or structured break fix event. And then it goes up from there, right? Our level and scale and then the adaptability that we provide on top of that. I mean, to your point, the project managers are definitely given the ownership of delivery within Kinettix for that product and for that contract.
Yeah.
So we get to make the decisions that are going to allow us to be successful in delivering that.
Yep.
But it's also then on us to come up with what that success looks like. What
Yeah.
not only from a customer client standpoint of delivering like the installation again on site, as I've said, but also just again having a satisfied customer, having a successful project. I can get techs on site, but if I don't do it when the client wants us to do it, they're going to view that as a failure, even though the work is done.
Yeah.
I need to be able to deliver the results in the same expectations that our client's expecting.
I think that's what's brought all of us back to Kinettix at the same place, is because delivery and sales, at the end of the day, what you're doing is if you do it the right way, it's helping people. And in this service where you have different environments, different scopes of works, all these variables, you have to be flexible and nimble. And I think here we're empowered to do that, which is critically important to keeping customers happy.
I'll take that even a bit further, and I'll use the word cohesive. How sales, solutioning, operations, we're not just cowboys out there in so many organizations where the salespeople are out there, they're selling a certain something, and then it has to back channel itself through the organization. And then by the time it hits, operations or back to the customer, those things are wildly different, perhaps, right? You've got a telephone game going on, and in our world and in our environment, it's expensive to do it the way we do it. We know that, but it's critically important that we have so much buy-in on what the customer wants, what the AE has heard, how that got delivered back to solutioning in order to put that into an SOW and in assumptions, and making sure the accuracy of all of that is there. And then that operations is actually going to be able to deliver on it and give the customer ultimately what they asked for in the beginning. That's cohesiveness. And it's incredibly difficult to do. Let me rephrase that. It's not incredibly difficult to do. It's incredibly difficult to practice that on a consistent basis. And I think that's where a lot of organizations get lost. I think they've got all these rigid practices and things in place. But at the end of the day, I mean, how many times do we end up getting brought in mid-project because somebody else failed and we're left there to try to clean it up, right? And sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We're not perfect. I'm not trying to mislead anybody here. However, if we can get in at the very beginning and work with a client and set those expectations and make sure that they know and understand that there is a lot of layers that are happening here, but guess what? Let me tell you, under the hood, behind the scenes, whatever you want to call it, we are a cohesive team, and everybody's got buy-in and say in how we're going to set this project up, how we're going to bill it, how we're like all of this stuff.
Yeah, I just had a analogy that came to mind, so bear with me as I try to explain.
We love analogies.
Hopefully
They're welcome
makes
here.
sense. But we
this landing,
operate more like a water park and less like a canal, right? A canal is just a waterway where you have these
guided channels of water,
and then you stop the boat and you lower the water or raise the water depending on which way you're going, and then you enter the channel. Yeah, locked, exactly. And so it's this very rigid process, but it works, right? It allows the boat to get up and downstream and provides that functionality. Whereas we're built much more like a water park, where we have these intricate slides that we've created, these pathways to speed up the process, and that we can reconfigure as necessary to fit the customer's needs, right? It's about fitting the pieces and parts. Maybe they need a loop-to-loop in their slide to help them for whatever process. I'm again just going with the analogy here, that we can configure and build specific to their needs and wants.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm at a water park and there's a loopity-loop slide, I'm not going on that one. I'll tell you.
I'm in.
You're in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not a loop-to-loop, but the features of a water slide. But yeah, it's specific, it's configurable, it's designed for their needs.
Yep.
It's not just this rigid process that happens to work.
And I think on this project, there's been some really cool use cases of that, almost to the point where it almost gets glossed over because we just get it done, right? We figure out a way to do it, and it's like, okay, great, you got it done, awesome. It's like, well, do you really understand what went into this? Like, for example, you mentioned missing materials. So techs would get the site, some of the materials wouldn't be there. Normally, you just fail that site,
Yep.
right? I mean, we had technicians that were driving hours to other sites that were going on, picking up excess materials, going back to get that job done that night and keep the schedule
Yeah,
on
that's that
track.
flexibility.
Creativity, understanding of the problem, having a workaround with those problems on the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other one where the drops, we're supposed to know where the drops are going, right? Like typically you get pictures like put this drop here, or here's like a guide or decision tree to do that.
Now, when you say drops, you're talking about
Cable
cabling drops.
Yes, correct. Where they terminate. So we have some on the kitchen line that are just different or unique for every location because they're stainless steel. The kitchen layouts are different. So what we have our technical coordinators do, this is something we developed mid-project, is when the technicians get there, they'll take a picture of that, send it to our technical coordinators. They'll get, based on their tribal knowledge of being a part of this project for several months, they'll come up with the best placement for that, give that back to the technicians. Meanwhile, the techs are working on other things. They get that picture back, then they can then do those cable drops. So they're basically engineering that piece of it on site.
Yeah, so it's unique to every location that we go to.
Yeah, right. Benny and the Jets. Let's. I want to touch on like your eyebrow deep into this, right? You brought a lot of structure to try to help, but talk to us a little bit in the audience about how eyebrow deep. Yeah.
Eyebrow deep. I
You're not
can't
quite
breathe.
over your head.
I've not heard that before.
You're not over your head, but you're up to your eyebrows in this.
Definitely not breathing though.
Yeah.
With a snorkel.
There you go.
Since we're talking water parks and all that,
Yeah.
fluidity. Talk to us a little bit about not just the accountability of what Kinettix is there to do, but how you're wrangling in all these others that have a responsibility outside of us. Is there anything that stands out to you about how you navigate and make sure that that communication is not threatening and or argumentative or the finger pointing that you were talking about before? Because I think a lot of times we're guilty until proven innocent in our business, right? We're the ones that are there physically doing the stuff. You gotta, like the pictures, you gotta wrangle all this stuff in and tell the right story, an accurate story. But there's a lot of other people that hold responsibilities in these projects that are completely outside of us. Do you have a secret sauce as to how you approach that at all, and making sure that you're getting what you need from all the people that and their responsibilities in this?
Yeah, I hope this isn't cliche, but reporting. It's the best tool.
Heck on it. We keep going back to reporting.
But it's the best tool.
Can we come up with something less
capture-
obvious?
Yeah.
Like that's a little on the nose.
It allows you to paint those pictures in a very non-threatening way. That
Factual.
Yeah, you just can point to the data and say, and the customer is always welcome to capture their own data to validate.
Yep.
Like we should have like a background data set that we can expose to the client to provide them the reason why we're drawing these issues up. But I think what really comes into play is being proactive.
Yeah.
And being able to identify, and that comes partly with experience. I mean, we've been doing this now for a long time now.
We have.
And Kinettix has the experience and the exposure to be able to walk into a project mid completion, if you want to call it that a previous vendor has been unable to successfully do, and to not only have a process where we can quote that and be successful to align with our clients to make that a profitable venture for both of us, but then to deliver it again mid-cycle. Most large companies aren't going to even entertain that. If a project is already kicked off and going, then it's too late for them to even want to join.
Yeah.
That's too much headache.
I've seen this in person too. It is really obvious with the reporting, but instead of nagging the client for, hey, I need this every day, it's, hey, let's look at the action item list. Here's your action items. This is what I need to be successful. And then you parlay that into a risk log. If I don't get those things, here's the risk that creates. And that's the proactiveness. It's looking forward for those landmines.
You're not pointing the finger at that point. You're not saying this is your fault, you're the reason we failed. It's here's the natural outcome of this situation. Let's work together to mitigate that. Right? It's about developing that partnership to solving the problems that come up with these projects, less finger pointing that you need to do this. It's more about working with them to do it together.
I'm interested in another opinion of yours, and this is probably more of a subjective versus an objective question, but when you're talking about your history and your background and when you came on board, when you first started and into this business, what's changed in the world in your mind as far as how business is being done, how receptive people are, the different ways in how we communicate versus back 2010
It's a
or
great
whenever you
question.
said, or like what kind of shifts or changes have you noticed things evolving to that's either easier or harder or both?
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic question because I haven't thought about
I'm
that.
full of those, Ben.
Yeah,
I'm just going to
good.
tell you.
Well, then maybe I'll come back and
Yeah,
give some
I
more.
think you should.
Yeah. So the immediate thing that comes to me is a labor pool. The way that we would source and find technicians prior to probably COVID, maybe even I don't know
The labor platforms that started popping up all over the place.
those like the Uberification of everything
Hmm.
has changed the job market, which has changed our technician labor pools and how our technicians find and establish their work for the day. We use mostly 1099 contractors or
Yep.
third-party resources that are local and skilled for the job set. And so now they have a whole different repertoire of tools at their end.
Yeah.
Previously, it was very common for somebody to kind of get on board with one of these field services companies, and then that field service company would just feed them as much work as possible to keep them busy, and then that was their life as they were kind of in a one-on-one relationship, even though they were independent contractors. Now, with the advent of these different tech pools and different resources to platforms for them to advertise themselves or their services, it's really kind of changed the dynamic of how our technicians interface with us, and that's required Kinettix to grow and adapt and to model our business to capitalize on that and to be able to shape that. So that's the immediate thing that comes to mind. I think a lot of the way that business is orchestrated now is the way that the sales process is flows actually really hasn't changed much. You still have the same kind of entities doing, like I was talking about, value added resellers versus enterprise level facilitators. A lot of that has actually really stayed the same despite many changes in like how we procure hardware and the shortages that we've ran into over the last several years, starting probably with COVID.
Like supply chain
Yeah,
issues.
supply chain issues, and you would think that the market would really adapt and change to those shortages and to those product um, impacts on the project. And I really haven't seen much change for that. I mean, to the point where projects just kind of go on standstill if the hardware is not available, which I find is kind of remarkable. I would think that the market would adapt to that now that it's become not just a one-time blip, but a recurring pattern that we're seeing. I think about the chips for the trucks. I think it was like the Ford F-150s, and
Yeah.
they were parked in a parking lot.
Oh,
at
right.
I think it was
Down at Kentucky
the
Speedway,
Speedway,
right?
the racing place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there was just thousands of these trucks just sitting there because they were waiting for parts.
That never got sold
Yeah, and
because they
now
were already obsolete because of the,
exactly. So that's a very
manufacturing still spitting out the new ones. Still have to.
very public example of a supply shortage causing a delay in a project and the delivery of that project. We see that all the time on the field services side. If they can't get the specific part or like switch or router that they need to make this solution that they're selling or that they're providing to the end client
Yeah.
viable, then that entire project just goes on hold. And so to not see the market react to that and to be able to, I don't know, come up with a solution for that is kind of surprising to me now over the last couple of years. Like I would think that there would be new businesses or new options or something would come up that would help to solve that problem or remediate it.
Yeah.
because I mean, money's lost. Like there's all that RFP process to
Yep.
build those projects out. There's tons of planning and invested cost to make those projects the reality that they are.
No doubt.
And then to see them get put on hold
Yeah,
or just
for nothing to
ultimately
happen.
never, never delivered. I mean, that's a lot of sunk costs that just gets lost.
What about changes in the customer's buying habits or practices? And you talked about Uberification. I love that word just because of, internet, Amazon, like all these luxuries that we have today that brings instant gratification. And from how we source our news to how we get notified, we've got all these luxuries that are out there. Do you feel like there's been any shift or change in expectations, logical thinking, behavior differences? Like,
I think I've seen ripples.
sure.
I've seen companies and organizations testing out new capabilities or new functionality to see if it's viable for them. So they might have ordered from us in a certain way, and then they tried something new, and whether that worked or not kind of depends on the circumstance. And what I mean by like ripples is they might have tried to stand up their own field service organization or utilize one of these new platforms that allows them to source technicians directly. And then they realize what goes into delivering field services. It's
Yeah.
more than just the tech on site, especially if you're doing this at scale. And so they may have tried a project one way, learned those lessons, and then have come back to us and said, "Hey, here's where we're at. Can you help deliver this for us?" And that's allowed us to come up with some very unique solutions. I think our Field Flex solution has really bridged that gap.
Which, take a minute and remind everybody what that is. We have talked about this on several different episodes here, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Talk about what Field Flex is.
Kinettix not only delivers excellent results through our PMO and FSO teams to the clients directly, but we also outsource our internal resources through the Field Flex platform or program that allows us to build these client orchestrated and ran teams that are trained in the Kinettix way, that have a Kinettix understanding, but are doing the work for the client on behalf of the client. And so what this has allowed us to do is kind of bridge the gap, let's say, for a field service platform. They're really set on using a specific platform for this project, or they've sold it in a way that requires them to use this platform. But they're not equipped to run, again, those field service technicians on a scalable approach, making sure that they negotiate pay, making sure that the technicians are vetted properly, that they arrive on site on time when they're expected, that we validate that the work was completed. Right? Those are all value adds that Kinettix provides that often get overlooked. If they were your own W-2 technicians, you would have to do that.
Yeah.
And so we can now stand up these teams and build out this infrastructure to do that on the client's behalf. And they can even use Kinettix field technician platforms. So even though they're kind of a Kinettix resource stood up for the client, they can even be in client secluded areas that are secure, that are using the client-specific laptops in the client's environments. But they're Kinettix employees, trained in the Kinettix way, and then they can interface back with us and use Kinettix technicians. So again, ensuring that you have the best technicians at the lowest cost, but still having your own team that you're managing and you're working with to deliver those outcomes.
Yeah. I think it's important to recognize those platforms for what they are. They're not field services, they're a field service platform. So you get access to the technician, but somebody has to negotiate with them, manage them, set them up for success, review deliverables. So I think where it's a really great use case is, especially with US companies that we work with, is if they land a big project and they have to burst or scale quickly, this is an easy way, this easy button for that. Or a lot of people don't want to work after hours or weekends, right? And with our model, that's daytime for them.
Yeah. I mean, we use the Uberification, but imagine that you had to order an Uber for somebody else and you were only going to get paid if that person got to the destination, but you didn't know who the Uber driver was or what the vehicle was or if that person even got picked up or not. you would want to validate those things. You would want to manage those things, and that's what we do. Is we make sure that those technicians are doing what they're supposed to be doing. That the outcomes that we're really trying to achieve are actually being achieved.
Absolutely. Well, great conversation, folks. I hope everybody's enjoyed this. I certainly have. I think it's, again, I think the things we're trying to accomplish here with these episodes is just the unveiling of all the things that we feel like are the right way to approach field services work, because it is hard. We even learned this from new employees that have, quote unquote, been in the industry. But when they get here and they see all the other things that we're doing, that behind the scenes look, it's hard.
Yeah.
And, it's hard.
Yeah, this will tie a nice bow on it, because this is Ben's work that's got us to this point. Is I sit on these daily calls for this project, and every day we get on there, and we just go through the sites they did the night before, and it's got this one done. Switch was in the basement. This one was a shared restaurant with another one. So you hear all these things, you're like, man, that was probably a really difficult site to get done. But we just go through it like clockwork. Yep, 5 sites last night, got them done, no problem. Here are all your deliverables. Let's move on to the next ones. So it's all that work that Ben has put in to build up to get us to this point where it looks really easy. We just got it done. But as you peel back the layers of the onion, there's a lot that had to get done to get us there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for the audience too, like Ben, we're going to have you back. I know that there's another topic that we're very interested in talking to you about, that you're getting your feet wet in developing, and we've talked ad nauseum about AI, as the world has, and where that's going, how we're leveraging it to our advantage, to our customers' advantage. And the things that you're doing with it specifically, that is, it's very exciting. So we're definitely going to have you back and enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for being here. Everything that you're doing for us, I'm somewhat emotional. So it's.
No, I'm just excited.
It's awesome.
I'm excited to have him back. See if he's gonna have one of those blazers. Pocket square.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me here. I mean, we've invested a lot in the work that we do. I mean, we've been living this for a long time together. So you're right to be emotional. We have put a lot of our life into doing this, into being the experts in field services. So I have all confidence in saying that is what we do, and that's what we are.
Yeah.
And so thank you for having me today, and I can't wait to come back and talk about AI. It's changed the way that I think, the way that I work. It's really revolutionized the way that I do my business that I do. And so I can't wait to share that with you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're very excited. So thank you, bud.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
All right.